Welcome to the Nerdist Podcast number 806. This is going to be a very, very, very quick intro. I just want to quickly say that I'm going to be on tour on the East Coast in a bunch of cities the beginning of June for like the first 8 days in June. Go to id10t.com. That's id number 0t.com, id10t.com, and come out and see me if you're in one of the areas around there. This episode is Colin Farrell. Colin's promoting The Lobster, which is the movie's fucking amazing. It is completely different than anything you've ever seen, and he's fantastic in it, and everyone's fantastic in it, legitimately fantastic. I'm sure if you've seen any reviews, then you know I'm not bullshitting you. The movie's fucking great. John C. Reilly's in it. There's a lot of really great people in it, and you should go see it when you can, like now, well, after the podcast. Or actually, start the podcast, drive to the theater, finish the podcast, go in and see The Lobster. Here's the Nerdist Podcast number 806 with Colin Farrell. Katie, please roll the thing.
Now entering Nerdist.com.
Is it when it ends, then you'll just be able to watch it all at once. You won't have to wait.
Yeah, binge watching. I'm quite excited about that. Did I binge watch? How many shows do you have to watch a night to consider it a binge?
I think just a couple.
Okay, so I binge watched Mr. Robot.
Oh, isn't that great?
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, in the first 5 seconds of the show,
He's so good.
You're
That
in.
Guy's so good in it.
What do you think's going on that show?
What I think's going on?
Yeah.
Oh God, a whole lot. It's just there's too much. It's too chaotic to try and find some kind of clear idea of what the narrative is telling you.
I think I think the next season's gonna have some weird sci-fi.
I think it was all a dream. Bobby Ewing's still alive. It's all just a dream.
The power of Dallas still pervading.
It's fucking John C. Reilly turned up for the press today in like a 10-gallon hat. He looked like JR. He did. He looked like JR. He did. And I mean in a great way.
Yeah, but so John C. Reilly is a guy that John C. Reilly could ride in on a giraffe and people would be like, yeah, it's John C. Reilly.
He's great, man. He's great. He's lovely.
He's great in the movie too, and you're fucking fantastic in this movie.
Thanks, man.
This movie is so great.
I hope we're recording. Are we? Is
Yeah,
this
we're
happening
recording.
already? Good, excellent.
Got all this.
Sorry, I missed that last bit you said.
This movie. It's really.
Thank you.
It's really great because it when you finally see something that is so completely original and it's done well. It's such a because you sit through so many other movies just waiting for something really fantastic. I mean, this movie is fantastic, like from second one.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, Yorgos is something else. Yorgos and his co-writer, Themis Philippou, are pretty special fellas. You know, the perspective they have on life and how the sense of humour that they have and how they see all the things that we all feel and all observe in what we esteem at times are the mundanity of our days, and they see it and they put it in a really spectacular kind of context and vessel, as they did in, I mean, what is Dogtooth? I think his second Greek film was an exploration of what? I don't know. It's set within the structure of a family environment, a very, very suppressive family environment. So it is about family dynamics, but then Alps is about, just to put a byline, I'm sure they're all about much more, but is about grief and the ability or disability of human beings to really deal with grief and move on from the loss of loved ones. And then this one is about, 1,001 things. There's not, you were asking me what happens at the end of the film, and I wasn't being facetious when I said you know as much as I, because it's more than any other film I've done. I don't claim any ownership of what it's about or even what my character's journey is. There's no arc to my character. There's usually arcs. A character arc. He starts here, he goes on some heroic journey, or he learns some great life lesson. Not really with David. He's just bumbling through like so many of the characters are under this very, very oppressive kind of regime to try and just exist, really.
I do think there's to me it just sort of read a lot about this sort of crazy pressure of relationships and not feeling like if you're not a part of a relationship, you're broken, and if you're broken, you got to live in the woods, Then they have their own set of rules too.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's in there as well. I mean, the film is, there's 1,001 contradictions in it as well. And it definitely, I mean, I could see people thinking that the film has a political bent to it also, because there are two kind of conflicting ideologies that are at play, and both are very extremely drawn.
Sure.
And one is the ideology of the hotel, where if you're single in this world, you have to go to the hotel, where you have 45 days to find a partner. And the finding of a partner, or the aligning with another person, is usually dictated by sharing some common physical characteristic, whether it's short-sightedness or a limp. But if you don't find a partner within 40 days of the hotel, 45 days, you get taken to the transformation room and you get turned into an animal of your choosing. Meanwhile, there are a group of people who are kind of anarchic by nature, who live in the forest, and they're called loners, and they have shunned the rule of society, which is this rule that singledom is against the law of the land, and they live a life in the forest alone. They meet together every now and then to dance to electronic dance music and partake in other such kind of odd activities in the middle of the forest in the dark. But there are really strict and really sinister rules that are at play there. Like if you're caught flirting with someone, you're given the red kiss, which is your lips are cut with a razor blade and you're forced to kiss the person you were flirting with. So you just go from one extreme to the other. And I don't think this was the filmmaker's intention, but me as a layman, I see it. I read the script and I read it as an observer, as just a fan of writing, and then I do the film as an actor, and then I see the film. Because it's so unusual, my presence doesn't ruin the whole spectacle for me like it usually does, because it's so particular.
Right.
So I see the film as a viewer as well, and as an audience member, and I garner certain relevances, or certain kind of allegorical lines drawn between what's in the film and the society that we live in. And one of them that I draw is that any kind of rule of the land that is strident and is by its very nature oppressive against human nature is inevitably bound to fail, or people will have to push against it and have to kind of, try to seek out some form of individual existence.
I love anything. It's very, and I know he's Greek, but it totally feels like a British movie, because it's so, anytime there's dialogue that's like, I love the dialogue of inane literal small talk.
Yeah.
Would you like to shine your shoes? No, I shined my shoes yesterday. Okay, I was just asking. It's like that there's, no matter which side of the fence everyone's on, there's still this kind of like mundane existence, and everyone's just trying to hobble through as best as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of that in there. Absolutely.
So
there's no meaning beneath the lines.
No, but that's what's great about them.
It's beautiful. There's a great freedom in a complete lack of subtext. Certainly for my character anyway, there was no hidden meaning. Whatever he said was whatever he was feeling, and he wasn't feeling much at many times. So is there a tone meeting before you start something like that? Because you obviously have to trust a director when you're there. Yeah.
And you're like, are you sure this is what you want?
No, the tone meeting was kind of sitting in a dark theatre 5 years ago watching Dogtooth in Philadelphia on a Tuesday night. That was the tone
and just
meeting.
Getting it.
Yeah,
going,
well, you just kind of go, okay, so you see Dogtooth and you see Alps and you go, here's a filmmaker with a very particular cinematic language that he has at his disposal, or that he's creating, between him, as I said, and Lanthimos, his co-writer. And I think Yorgos was kind of adamant is the word, or was kind of hopeful that any of the actors that he spoke to had seen and were versed in his previous works.
Right.
Because he knows himself. I don't know if he thinks he's brilliant or shit, or what the hell his creative inner voice is. But I know that he understands that he's a very specific way of making films, both the process of making and then also a very specific tone that he's reaching for. And that tone is allowed to change, and it's allowed to reveal itself to Yorgos and to the cast and to the crew in the process of shooting the film, and then re-reveal itself in his process of cutting the film and of putting music. This was the first time I think he used music. There wasn't music in Dogtooth and Alps. But yeah, Yorgos he's very aware that his voice is kind of a very singular voice in film, which you're aware of when you read the script. You don't, because you don't read scripts like this. You just don't. I've been reading scripts for 15 years now, and I may read anywhere between 20 and 50 scripts a year or something, and I never, every now and then you come across, as I said, a voice that just, they are using language that we recognize and language that we have at our disposal. They are using emotions to greater or lesser degrees and thought patterns to greater or lesser degrees, but there's some way that all these things come together that makes it incredibly unique. And I felt the same when I read Martin McDonagh for the first time, and I felt the same when I read Yorgos' stuff for the first time, and Terrence Malick. Even greats like Peter Weir. Peter has a very particular cinematic language, which is akin in my book to kind of David Lean. It's very particular, but these guys are writers first and foremost, I think,
Yeah.
Particularly Martin. I mean, he's a writer to his core and then got into filmmaking. But yeah, the worlds they design on the page and then bring to life through the process of shooting is so unusual and so specific.
And sometimes people who are hardcore writers first, especially if they're novelists, and it can be a little constricting because they're so powerful at constructing their world.
Yeah, and they've heard it.
Yeah,
and they know how they want it to sound.
Absolutely.
And then, I mean, poor Martin, I love him, but he's a bee's dick away from giving you line reading. I mean, at any given moment, do you know what I mean? Because Martin, here's there's almost an iambic pentameter to the way he writes, and there's such a music to his language, whereas with Yorgos and Lanthimos, it's not so much that there's a music to their language. Of course, there is a kind of a stilted fluidity. Anything that works has to have a fluidity, but this is a very stilted when it works, and it works awkwardly.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of it, I believe. But it's as much, if not more, about the worlds they create and the dynamic that goes on between the characters, rather than exactly what they're saying at any given time.
And I love a movie that just establishes a world without having to go, here's why this world is the way it is. Like, it just is the world.
No, he's got enormous
it's just the world.
It's funny because, I know that I would assume that Yorgos has been accused of being pretentious and shit, I mean, it's, or his work being highbrow or exclusive or something like that. But I swear I don't know of a director I've worked with that has a greater respect for the audience and for allowing the audience to have their own experience. He's not trying to impose his own personal philosophies and ideologies on the audience. He is setting up a very specific world, but leaving so many things open to interpretation, as evidenced by particularly the end of... Did you see Dogtooth?
I did not see Dogtooth.
Check it out. So good. I mean, it's so disturbing. Jesus.
I know. Well, that's the...
I mean, it makes Lobster look like Mary Poppins. Do you know what I mean? It's so bleak. It's so bleak. Like, at least there's a little bit of love on the fringes of the story.
Sure.
I think by the end of The Lobster, there's a sweetness that begins to kind of make itself through struggle apparent, or that it wants to be in the story through Rachel's character, my character. But Dogtooth is just bleak. But yeah, what was I saying? I can't remember.
Well, you were talking about that you said there was some fringe hope in this movie, but the other one was very dark. But maybe it's just about the way writers kind of convey the world.
No, I was saying about his respect for the audience. Yorgos' respect for the audience. It really, he is so adamant that he, even as a filmmaker, as a director, does not have any definitive answers for what exactly each moment in the film is about. He knows what he finds true, and he knows what he finds intriguing, and he knows what he finds essentially interesting in human behaviour and in regard to the societal systems that we all live within, whether it's the first, societal system most of us grow up in is a family, and then it goes into school, and then it branches out into neighbourhood, and then if you travel for college, or you can say world, it goes out like that way. And Yorgos finds all that stuff really interesting, but never at the expense of the audience's involvement. He's not just making something for his own fancy. He's really, really more concerned with asking the question in an interesting way than answering it in a kind of a feat of perceived self-certainty. Well,
there's definitely the movie keeps weaving back and forth between hilarious and human, and then something super fucked up.
Yeah, no, really,
just like a really quick super fucked up. Where you're like, what the?
Yeah.
Oh God! And then back into the.
Yeah, I mean, any film that can take a common kitchen appliance, as this one does, such as a toaster, and use it in the way this one does, you go, it's fucking mental, and then you just think, what's around the corner? Everything. There's nothing really. There's nothing as seemingly in my mind. I think of a toaster, and I think of nice cup of tea and a couple of pieces of toast with lashings of Kerrygold on it, and good comfort food and nice hangover cure. And like a toaster is something that it's like pajamas, but then in this film you see it in the way that's used, and it's like, Jesus Christ, this world is really twisted.
It's an evil weapon. It was temporary.
Horrible.
It was a horrible weapon that he was being punished for.
It was always like they were using it like that's what the toaster was invented for. The rest of humanity have been way off the mark for all these years putting bread inside it, that it was actually supposed to be human.
Ultimately, the movie is about unpacking the true nature of the toaster. Yeah, exactly. That's ultimately
that should be
central...
the tagline. That should be on the one sheet. Have the one sheets all been printed up? Is it too late?
Is it? Can we throw that in? Are you guys? Can we make a call? Should we call someone? You can call someone. But you mentioned Martin McDonagh, and I'm sure people shout this at your face all the time, but In Bruges is one of the most beautiful movies. I mean, it is such a...
Nobody has ever shouted at me at that.
But that's also the thing, heckle you. In Bruges is a beautiful cinematic experience.
No, it's fuck you, Farrell. Asshole.
Oh, do you get that?
I want my money back for... Name a film.
Name a film. People don't shout at you on the street.
Nah. People are pretty good to me, especially when I go home. That's one of the great pleasant surprises of the last 15 years. Nobody's ever thrown a punch at me in Dublin. I thought that had happened for some reason. I thought just for years somebody would try me.
Oh, you think you're special, do you? Bam, bam, bam.
A bit of that, yeah.
No,
yeah.
But nothing.
No. I love going home and everyone's lovely.
But do they keep? But is there that kind of? Do you feel like they kind of keep you tethered to what?
I'd like to think I don't need to be tethered. You know, I would like to think, and maybe I'm full of shit, but I would like to think the things that are really important in life outside of all this. I mean, this is, telling stories and involving yourself with one of the most grandiose forms of make-believe known to man is gravy as a living. You know what I mean? Even when it's not working out for you, or you're doing things that you do something that you don't believe was realised in the way that you thought it may have been when you initially set out to do it. And even if, basically if you do something that you think doesn't work and you're not alone in that thought, even then it's an amazing way to make a living and I love it. But it's not really, it's not the thing, the thing is the other stuff, and it provides an ability to take care of some of the other stuff. But so with regards to being tethered, I mean, I just, the things that ground me are not how I'm perceived as an actor or perceived even as a man by strangers, I mean, don't get me wrong, it does affect me at times if I read negative shit and something catches my eye and
sure.
It sucks, but and there's been plenty of that. I've had plenty of experiences with that, but the bottom line is it's about those that you have close to you in your life and how they perceive you based on what they know about you,
Yeah. And you, honestly, you're able to kind of, because I don't think you're not on social media or anything.
No.
Yeah. That's probably why I'm
better at distancing myself from public responses, than I was at the start. I mean, at the start, I loved getting on and Googling myself and seeing what they were saying.
I feel like people learn pretty quickly.
Torture. But you know what it asks you to do? It literally, being in the public eye, especially with social media being as prevalent as it is today, and what it basically asks you to do, and excuse me for my self-interest and involvement, is pass by a locker room and hear somebody say, Chris Hardwick, and it asks you to keep walking.
And not investigate.
Keep fucking walking. Don't go back and see what the end of the sentence is. And that's what, because there's dialogue, you don't have to be a big head to know there could be people talking about you or commenting on pages or pictures at any given time. So it is a tricky thing. It just plays into human fears. And I accept it. And it's as simple as that. I'm much better at it. I have no interest in it now because it's just tiring. Any reason why you get on to look at that shit will never result in you coming away feeling good about it.
No, because even if it's positive, it doesn't.
It doesn't. You're not getting on to see positive stuff.
Right.
If you needed to see positive stuff, you wouldn't get on.
Right.
You just wouldn't like the people that can go online to read comments on themselves and not be scarred by it, sadly, are the people that don't go online.
That's right.
Like those that want to are the ones that really can't, that shouldn't. And
yeah.
I
mean, it's a very interesting time, and I always wonder how, people, like, if you were a film star in the 70s, I feel like it'd be pretty easy to just not ever be affected by any of it because you would never know. But
yeah, and I'm not into I mean, it's interesting because there's this culture of distrust or culture of, just within the world of fame and all that kind of stuff where it's kind of like, fuck famous people and life is so easy and all that stuff. And I get it because I don't think that anyone by virtue of fame or recognizability or by virtue of wealth or even by virtue of what they may be able to do, unless there is some kind of musical genius that they have, that they can create a great sense of peace or a great sense of community with people all over the world. But I don't think it essentially makes them better people.
Right.
Certainly not the presence of fame. I mean, that's nonsense. But at the same time, then, if you get frustrated with that and you go the other side, then it can engender in those who are watching from the outside looking in a kind of an anger that's not really about the famous people either.
Of course.
It's just an expression of frustration that's born of wherever a person's life may be at the time.
Absolutely.
So it's a funny thing, the whole, comment sections and It's just a funny thing, because back in the day when freedom of speech was coined, of course, you had to be responsible for every word you said.
And now you don't.
You had to be across the table like you and me are sitting now and really be accountable. And now you don't. You hide behind, blue Fafra 49 and whatever.
I know this sounds weird, but I have this collection of antique guns from the 17th and 18th century. I don't know why. I don't have a justification for it. I just think they're pretty.
It sounds weird as having to sit in a room with two microphones and talk to each other, and other people are going to hear it. That's weird.
I guess it is weird.
Yeah, that's not weird.
That's not weird. They're not. The guns don't operate or anything. They're just old. But when you're kind of looking at antique gun sites and you see dueling pistols and you realize, oh yeah, the things that someone says online, a tenth of the ferocity of that a couple hundred years ago, you'd be out in a town square pacing and shooting a tiny ball into someone's spine.
The glove would be off, the slap would be had, and it'd be back to back and 10 paces.
Just for because
Seriously.
words had so much power, and that's how interesting it is that our culture has flipped. That there's such an ambivalence. Like words don't really mean anything anymore.
I know. Swear to God, man, I wish everyone the best. I just have a suspicion that the majority, if not every single person that gets on and writes vitriol online, is a miserable bastard.
I mean, it's quite possible.
And I just wish that there was less miserable bastards in the world. So it's not about, why did you say that? It's kind of like, oh God, you're in pain.
Why can't you?
Seriously.
Look at you. Something good
Come on,
happens.
pick up the mirror. Close the screen, pick up the mirror.
Live your life. Yeah, come on. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your life a little bit. But I think it is about finding that, because it's, particularly performers, I would imagine that most performers crave a bit of attention when you're young.
For sure. Oh my God.
You get attention when you're performing, and people are, oh, that's great. And so there is something that you're trying to fill.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all the superficial stuff that I think you think is going to be the thing that fills it doesn't really fill it.
No, nothing does. Nothing really. There's no amount of adoration. There's no amount of affirmation that can come your way from the outside world that will ever really answer the true questions that exist, I think, within all of us, that are born of our fundamental apple in the garden question of what's it all about, why am I here, what is my self-worth.
Sure.
And for sure, acting initially for me and doing acting workshops, there was a couple of things that happened. Number one, I thought, wow, great to be in front of people and have attention, and great to feel for a minute popular, and great to all that kind of stuff. And then you start going to theatre school, and that shit goes away pretty quick, because you've got 8-hour days, 5 days a week, and your teacher's telling you your shit and all that kind of stuff. So that goes away, and then what it was replaced by was just a curiosity, for me, a natural curiosity that I had in the machinations of human behaviour, and just why people interact the way people interact, and why I, or my brother, my sisters, my mother, my friends feel the way we do, and how our feelings result in the accumulation of certain behaviours, which become habit, which become personality, and blah blah blah. So that was kind of, and that's kind of what's sustained me. All the other stuff. I had a kind of a fast meteoric mental rise when I came over to America first. When I was 22 or 3, I did a film called Tigerland.
Of course,
it just went mad.
Yeah,
it went so, and it happened so fast that I kind of lost the joy in it, and I feel that's something that's kind of, for me, just personally returned selfishly in the last, maybe 4, 5, 6 years or so.
Kind of a fucked up thing to happen to a 22-year-old who is...
It's a lot. It's not poor me. It's never, I'm sorry anyone that wants to slag me, you can fuck off. I'm not saying life was hard. I'm not. There was no starvation. There was no sickness.
I'm just saying. Your head.
No, I'm just saying, for the human psyche and for the emotional development of a young man who is already probably, underdeveloped at 23. It's a lot. We just, We are assisted by those who are around us in our lives from our youngest ages on, our family, our schools, or we're assisted or we're hindered, but we're deeply affected. And we're also given a set of rules, and it's not just rules that are represented by the laws that are written, but social rules, things that are okay, things that are not okay, behaviours that are appropriate, behaviours that are inappropriate. I don't agree with what one person says is appropriate across the board. I don't agree with another person says is inappropriate across the board. You have your own room for individualism there, but there are certain things that you're told are kind of cool. Well, if you get a certain amount of fame, you're kind of told you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah.
Like anything, which is a shocking, which can be great fun. Folks at home, don't get me wrong, can be great fun, but can also land you in a shitload of trouble, and can also, just the bridle can come off, and you can just lose yourself in it all because you just don't know, and then you have people around you that are there for the good time, and then you're constantly pushing, and then boundaries just cease to exist, and it's amazing. Like, it's a very thin line between complete freedom and absolute self-imposed incarceration.
Yeah, well, I think humans really do need a certain amount of structure, and I think they need to feel connected, and they need to. And so when you take away the boundaries, I think people start pushing boundaries because they're just looking for boundaries, and it's like, oh, there aren't any. Yeah. So how do I keep upping this? And they get,
someone stop me. Someone show me real love. Say no.
But you're famous. I know. Stop it, please. Yeah.
No, I needed a louder no at 25 than I did at 5 or 6 years of age. Seriously. But I had lots of fun. It was an incredible time. My point being is this: it's a load to try and process. That's all. And I had a lot of family around me and people that cared for me. So I never really had a posse or an entourage. But I would still get. I would actually get away from my family because I knew that they had my best interests at heart, as much as I could. But I'm glad that chapter is closed.
So what advice do you have for people that maybe are trying to find that self-worth in the external world, or how do you tell people?
I don't. I know nothing.
But you're older and wiser now.
I'm older for sure. I don't know about wiser, but it's tricky, man. It's tricky. Even as, you and I sit across and you're wearing a beautiful black suit and a black tie.
I just got off work, 'cause otherwise I'd be like t-shirt. I'd have a
beautiful room.
I'd have a Star Wars t-shirt on.
Hollywood Studios on wherever we are, Sunset or Hollywood Boulevard, and life is good. And it's still just tricky enough to be a sentient human being and wonder where you fit in the grand scheme of things. Are you a good lover? Are you a good dad? Are you a good husband? Are you a good friend? Are you honest? Are you worth something? Are you capable? Are you smart? Are you handsome? Are you pretty? All this stuff that we put so much worth in, and none of it means anything because none of it's coming with us. The only thing that really, for me, has to mean, like health, and not even health sometimes, because there's plenty of people that have health and they don't even realize that, and I myself included, I bitch about life and I'm like really healthy, and then I meet someone whose health is suffering, and this has happened, and they have some fucking philosopher's stone. They've unlocked some key that means they can see through the strictness and the kind of debilitation of whatever sickness they're going through at the time is, and yet they have some deep joy, which is just maddening and brilliant and beautiful to see. But so, what's the secret? I have no idea, man. I just know that all the things that are supposed to be the things are not the things. I can tell you what it's not about much quicker than I can tell you what it is about.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the best thing about fame. The best thing about it is that you get to strike something that a lot of people would say would result in their happiness off the list. Yeah. You really get to practically. And then you get to go, okay, but it's actually really cool because it allows me to provide, and then I can get good tickets to this, or good seats to that, or, the odd time you find yourself in a private jet that you're not paying for. And, see, then you can really kind of giddily enjoy all the trappings and the good things that come with it, and just have fun with it and not put too much importance in it.
Or at least raise awareness if there are social causes that you can raise awareness more than you'd be able to.
Absolutely.
And I mean, there is...
Absolutely. That's a very real aspect of it.
There is I think that there definitely is a responsible way to do it, but it is odd. It is an odd thing. And I'm not 100% sure it was ever necessarily whatever sort of intention the universe may or may not have had for humanity. I don't know if like a handful of people rising up above everyone else for attention. It kind of feels natural, but weirdly unnatural at the same time.
You've heard the saying: if you meet Buddha on the path, kill him. But it's about that. It's like anytime you think you have found something that has the answer, or anytime you find something that holds itself aloft, there's a really high probability that thing will be either as a result of your own perception or just the facts of its existence will be a delusion and will be something that is there to trick you.
Yeah, and of course, again, if people listen, they're like, "Oh, it's easy for these guys because they have the money." But I do want to say it's not. None of that stuff makes everything...
No, I don't know if I'm a good father or I'm fucking my kids' lives up daily. I mean, that's all I'm talking about. That's
the important stuff.
I'm not even trying to normalize myself or anything. I'm just saying, it's amazing that through the chaos and the extremity of situations that I found myself in the last 15 years, that it's just really nice to arrive at a place where I realise how confused I am just about the simple and important shit. You know, and that no amount of fame or money can sort the most important fundamental things out in your life.
How do you make sure your kids listen that they're safe, and there's nothing that you just have to figure that out?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just failing.
I'm nervous.
Have you got kids?
I'm not yet, but I'm getting married in August, and we'll definitely.
You were going to say I'm getting one.
I'm getting one.
Where are you going?
I'm going to find one.
Amazon.
I'm going to go to the Amazon and find a child. No, my fiance wants to have kids in like a year, and
I meant Amazon.com, of course. For anyone out there that's thinking that I was suggesting you go to South
Amazon
America
Prime,
and purchase.
I'll have him in a day. No, Amazon Prime will have that kid in a day, and a drone will drop him off in my house, or her. Either way,
so dangerous, but really effective dangerous. And speedy.
It's very fast. You can have anything. It is. We live like fucking kings. Like it's like bring me.
It's insane.
$1 million.
Yeah,
bring
exactly.
me 10 of those things.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time before you can literally Amazon one grape.
That's it.
Just a single grape in bubble wrap.
But I'm definitely we're gonna have kids soonish, and and of course, and I'm terrified. I am terrified of it. So okay, good.
It's so much fun.
Everyone says that, but I'm such
it's also torture. No, it's not. I mean, it's
I'm a worrier.
It's crazy. It's so mad. It's so mad. It's like all of a sudden you have these appendages that are part of your body and are attached to and fed by your heart, and yet you can't control them. It's bizarre.
And that part is scary, the not being able to control, just like letting stuff happen.
Yeah, it's both so deep inside you and so far away from your control, you know.
Do you read about like, oh, I should do this, and if I accept these rules, they will have these psychological effects?
I've read a couple of things and disagreed with a few things, and then I have some friends that are parents, and we kind of bounce ideas around. You know, it's so much trial and error. But I have two really happy boys, you know, who are complicated fellas. They really are. Oh man, and you can't get them to talk because I'm like, Daddy, talk. You can tell me anything. Let's talk feelings and emotions and shit that I didn't have the opportunity to, because I think that's the way. And sometimes, guess what? They just don't want to do it. It's like, no, my emotional life is my emotional life. They don't say that. Was kind of like, can we stop talking about this now?
Right.
That's what I get sometimes from a 6-year-old. Can we stop talking about this now? And this is 2 lines into the conversation. And both lines have been questions from me. So, seriously.
I was wondering if, can we stop?
Yeah,
okay, I didn't,
yeah.
Okay.
I was literally driving down the street one day, and I looked in the back of the I looked in the rearview mirror, and one of my boys was looking out the window, and he looked very kind of wistful and a little bit melancholy to me, and of course I had to fucking interrupt the moment and go, "Are you okay, little man?" And he stopped looking out the window, and he went, "Yeah, why did you ask that?" And I just thought to myself, oh, you dick, Farrell. I said, nothing. I said, you just were looking at you know what? Nothing. Sorry. You could keep looking out the window. And, he was having his own. So you just worry. You want to know what your child's thinking, your children are thinking and feeling. Of course, it's completely natural, but they're amazing things, really.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember what it was like to think my parents didn't know anything, even though now I know that I don't know anything, and they were really smart, but I remember when they would say stuff and be like, You didn't even know. But of course, looking back, of course they knew.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, my dad still didn't know shit. God bless him. I love him. If he's listening to this, it's all good. Love my dad. But I remember my old man asking me to listen to lyrics and songs and stuff, and just drive the idea of it. Listen to words in songs.
What songs?
Oh, I mean, one of his favorites was "My Way." Oh no, and also Fairy Tale in New York, which is a great tune, of course, a great tune. But that line, I could have been someone, well, so could anyone. He used to play that particular line. I just feel, I was like, what are you trying to say? Yes, 8 years of age. What are you trying to say?
My way,
even
too.
If I make it, I'm just like everyone else, or are you trying to say it as a good thing that I can do something special with my life, but I shouldn't identify with that too much? Or what are you trying to say? I wasn't thinking that at 8, of course.
Can we not talk about this, please? And then
exactly. I'm just going to stare out the window again, like my future son in 36 years, who I'll interrupt and ruin the moment for. But however, it's fine. Move on.
But I think it's good to. I think learning. I feel like so much of our lives, especially now, when so much feels uncontrollable, we're in this really insane political climate, we're in this really insane global climate.
Yeah.
Everyone has a voice, and the internet, the stuff we were talking about, everything feels so uncontrollable. So how do you kind of harness that and create a protective bubble for, these little beings that are being introduced into a completely fucking bonkers world?
Well, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you can overextend yourself, and the nature of protection or the nature of reaching out and trying to provide a safe haven for somebody can also jeopardize, I think. I think there's a certain amount of, obviously, freedom. This is a country that espouses such, rampant philosophies about freedom and liberty, and I think that's very important to a certain extent to pay your kids as well, and to allow them to, that whole thing about make their own mistakes and so on and so forth. I was just going to think of something there in reference to that, but I'll come back to it. But in reference to
giving your kids freedom, not protecting them too much.
Yeah. I was thinking there was a moment about 4 or 5 months ago, and I was with my youngest boy, Henry, he was 5. It was nearly a year ago, and we were coming out of Gelson's, I think, and I was holding his hand, and I saw 2 paparazzi just across the car park, which is fine. They used to drive me mad, but I did a little bit of work on that as well. And they're not. I mean, I don't love what they do and anything, but I don't let them spoil me day.
That's good.
Yeah, because you can easily do it. I swear to God, you go next thing you're in a foot race, or you're trying to get through red lights or do donuts, and it's 2 hours, and you're driving around and you're going, what the fuck am I doing? Life
and
is
they
too
want
precious.
that too.
Oh, of course, But anyway, God bless them, each to your own. You never know what another man's been through unless you walk a mile in the shoes, of course. Anyway, so I came out of Gelson's. I had my little boy by the hand, saw the 2 paparazzis. I picked up my little fella, and I started running and pressing the thing for the beep beep for the car, and the tension in my body was completely processed by him. And we got to the car and opened the door, and he went, Daddy, because I was running. He's like, Daddy, what's wrong? Why are we? What's happening? And I put him in the car, and I said, nothing, little man, nothing. And I put the belt around him in the car seat, and I closed the door, and I got into the car, and for a second I was like, well, yeah, I don't think they got many pictures. And then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? He had no idea.
Right.
That little fella had no idea.
He just thought you lost it for a second.
He just had no... Yeah, I just made him really, really anxious. For what? For my own notion of principles and my own, natural enough desire to protect my child from something that I philosophically or ideologically don't really agree with.
Right.
So you have to be careful. I think you really... I think a lot of the times we try to protect our kids from things that we know are harmful and that can engender a fear in us, and we can kind of preemptively defend, which is not always wrong either. You see a child walk towards a fire, yes, preemptively defend and put your hand out, don't let it get burned first. But there are times as well when I know for myself, I can put too much of my own shit on my kids. It's never in the form of a belt,
right?
Or switch. It's not my thing.
At least you're aware of that, though. Like, most people aren't even aware of that.
No, I'm so aware of how much I'm fucking up as a father.
I don't think you're
so
fucking them
aware
up.
No,
but it does sound like you do. I could just, even the way that you're explaining, I can see your wheels spin. Like, you really do think things through.
It's really interesting, yeah, because I know how, I have an idea of how sensitive I was as a kid, and you don't have to be getting a knuckle sandwich from your father for stuff to hurt you in a way that it kind of congeals within you and comes out in some kind of maybe poor choice that doesn't best serve you on the playground or later on in life even, or so without being a robot and trying to break everything down, you have to chill out as well. just have a good time, but that's what it's all about. That's what this is all about, I suppose. Life is trying to extend and trying to multiply the times of joy and peace and laughter and try and allow naturally or through a discourse with the self a diminishing of all the other agitations.
It is, and sometimes the discourse with self is a challenging part.
Yeah.
How many... So I do feel like a lot of it is about asking good questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Like asking good.
Yeah,
how can I be, not why did I fuck this up, but how can I be better, or what did I learn from this?
Absolutely.
It's not alwa's easy to extrapolate those lessons.
No. But it can be fun as well,
It can be.
For $200 an hour. No.
But I mean, it's also, I think sometimes it's really important to just like write shit down. Mm-hmm. To just see it.
Do you journal, or do you keep a diary, or do you mess around, or just little bits of ideas? Or what
I use. I'm a comedian, so I have a note program, and I write. I don't sit down and go, this morning I had bacon for breakfast. But it's just like weird. I have a folder that's all these kind of like weird ideas that I don't know what to do with.
Sure.
And I just get them out.
Yeah.
And some of those turn into comedy, and some of those just exist for nothing.
And have you written short stories, or have you not? Have you thought of writing a novel, or would you like to do that as well, or no, down the road, or film script?
I don't. Well, that stuff. It's I don't mind that. I like the writing process, but but I don't like the editing process. That fucking drives me nuts, and I feel like that's why I wasn't necessarily meant to be a screenwriter. Because if I didn't,
Wait, you don't like the idea of somebody else editing your own work, or you don't like the idea yourself of having to mean your own work by cut it down and form it in?
I wrote a book a few years ago that was a little more autobiographical, and I wrote the first draft in a few months, and I'm like, I did it, and they came back with all these red marks. I'm like, God damn it! Now I have to think about what I wrote.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's like, how
me.
you
just didn't accept me.
Yeah. So that's all the part. I don't know. Are you writing stuff at the moment?
No, I mess around and write like bad poems and stuff, but I enjoy them. And no, there's an idea I have for a script that I want to write, and I've started a few scripts over the years, but I'm crap with follow through. I'm so impatient, So I've started a few things and not finished them. But there's one thing that I literally started in 2011, and I just came across it, and it was only 3 scenes that opened it up, and I kind of remember where it was going, and I'm in a different place now, which is really interesting to apply wherever I am now to what was a genesis 5 years ago. But I'll finish that. I know I can do that I have it all kind of, the trajectory of it all blocked out, so I'll just write that and then just put myself under no pressure to even make it.
Yeah,
just go actually just as an experience to just actually complete a script for once,
just to see what it's like.
Just to see what it's like to complete a script for once. Just that.
That's the best. I mean, that just doing it for the process is really
just take the pressure off.
No,
I'd like to do that, so I'll do that and see what happens. And then I can tell if it was something that would ever be worth putting on film or microchip, that it would be done for $2 or $3 million or something.
But the great thing is, if you don't feel like doing that, you don't have to. You can just do it for that reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you knew this or even cared, but George Lucas, after he sold all of Star Wars and Lucasfilm and everything, he basically just set aside a chunk of money, and he's just going to make movies
for fun
that he's not going to show to anyone.
Wow.
At all, just for himself.
Wow.
I kind of feel like, that's amazing.
It's one thing splashing a bit of paint on a canvas and going, nobody needs to see that, but holy shit, that's amazing.
He's been adamant about like, so you're going to have small screenings? No, I'm not going to show it to anybody.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe he's just gotten very shy in his old age.
It's possible. Or maybe it's just, at a certain point...
There's a purity to that.
There's a purity, and also, like, maybe I don't, especially for something that he created a property that he does not... Well, he literally doesn't own it, but also socially you don't really own that stuff once it's out in the world.
Yeah.
So there's something kind of gratifying about it. I'm just doing this to do it, and I own it, and no one else gets it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, would you ever work on something if you thought, like, no one's ever going to see this is just for me, or this is just for us?
Well, I have worked on a few things that nobody's ever really seen, but I didn't go into it with that in mind. So I can't say I was that kind of, altruistic to the self. But would I? Yeah, I mean that nobody was going to see.
Yeah, if someone said, "There's this thing, and you're going to work on it for a couple months. It's going to take your time. It's going to take your energy. No one will ever be able to see it." Would you do it knowing that it was just for you and the people who made it?
I don't think so, because I think I'm part. Just from where I've come from, I'm part of the experience of telling stories that are supposed to be shared, whether they're supposed to offer a moment's escapism and entertainment, or something like The Lobster, which is a little bit maybe more thought-provoking and has some kind of, maybe social significance if people want to draw that. And a couple of my friends who saw it stayed with them, and they did kind of draw some significance of their own lives. But I don't think so. I can't think why I would do that apart from the fun of it. But it would have to be, there'd have to be a particular reason to do it. Like George Lucas is doing it. I think it's very astute what you just said. It makes sense to me, whether that's the reason or not. It does that. It was so put out in the public domain, like it had a reverberation and still has a reverberation, Star Wars, like nothing before or since. So what's the complete other end of the spectrum to that is to go, I'm now just personalising. I'm now just making about me and my artistic voice just for the FUN of it.
Yeah.
Whereas I haven't had that journey. So I just make films, and I hope, people go and see them and can relate to the odd frame inherent, therein.
Do you have emotional experiences as you're doing them, or is it kind of a work? Because again, I have to bring up In Bruges again, because it is one of those movies. It's a movie that I feel like you could watch every year or two and go, God damn it.
Right.
They just did it so well. I mean, it really just feels like a perfect little movie.
It'd be lovely if it stood the test of time. Again, that's the ego bullshit, but it'd be nice if it stood the test of time.
Did it feel that way when you were...
No, not at all. I mean, I loved the script when I read the script. Chris, was extraordinary, and it was so, I mean... People have said The Lobster's funny, and some people have said it's a dark comedy, surrealist comedy, and I get that, but it was more funny when it was brought to life. And when I saw the space that the film was set in, and I saw the costumes of the men and the costumes of the women, and I was aware of the situations as they were being brought to life in the scenes, and I saw the other actors bringing their characters to life, and some of it was hilarious. But in reading the script, there was kind of a darkness and a twistedness to it that rendered it not, incredibly comedic to me. That was The Lobster.
Right.
But in Bruges, when I read it, was hilarious, and it was also deeply upsetting and deeply moving, and it had its own version of kind of existential philosophy that was swimming around in the mix as well. But shooting it, I didn't know. I just knew it was a very extraordinary piece of writing. I mean, I knew it was such an extraordinary piece of writing. I tried to talk Martin McDonagh out of casting me. I said,
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder how much I'm bullshitting or am I trying embellishing the past. And so I asked him that, and he said, "No, you did." He said, "When we met first, you said you should really cast someone else because people will come into the cinema with a certain amount of baggage with me, and it's such good writing that you should cast an unknown." And thankfully he didn't listen to me. And
that's good. Hopefully that taught you a lesson about that maybe you're too aware of stuff and you're not necessarily
Shut
right.
Up, Farrell. Yeah. Keep your humility, whether it's true or pseudo, intact, in check, and shut up. I had no idea, but it's one of the films that a lot of people, or a lot of the few people that come up and say it's a favorite of people's.
Yeah.
Film.
And I actually really loved the Fright Night remake.
Oh, thanks,
which,
man.
Fright Night.
That I don't hear very often.
Really?
Yeah.
Because if it was an interesting movie to. It was an interesting movie to.
Shut up! Anyone listening, I'm not denigrating myself. I'm completely cool with all that I'm saying. This is not. I have not got a cat of nine tails, and I just haven't heard that very often.
And flagellating yourself?
No, I'm not flagellating myself.
No, not at all.
No, not at all. That's cool.
Yeah, well, because Fright Night, if you were a horror fan at all, I loved the original. It was just a weird little movie that I think did well enough that people at the time were kind of aware of it, but it wasn't a huge...
The original?
The original.
No, it wasn't huge, but it was kind of the definition of something that generated a cult gathering, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
I loved the original Fright Night.
Yeah.
Loved it. And I had a really good time doing the second one. It was good. It was good camp fun.
Yeah, well, because you put your own spin on it, and you were great in it, and Tennant is amazing.
He's fun in it, isn't he?
David Tennant's great.
Yeah, I think Craig Gillespie did great with that film. Yeah, my friend Craig. I think he did great.
I mean, when you're presented with stuff, and you said you read 20 or 50 scripts a year, what does something have to have for you to go, is there a specific thing? Or
no, not really. I mean, ideally, again, like with In Bruges or The Lobster, maybe even Neil Jordan's Ondine, which anyway, something specific, just a voice, as vague as that sounds, just a voice, just a perspective. And I am contradicting myself because I said Yorgos is someone who's, as meticulous in particular as he is as a filmmaker. I've never seen anyone go through such lengths and be so detailed to then offer it open to the audience to have their own interpretation. Mm-hmm. Like, it's amazing. And that's kind of what you're looking for in the writing as well. Something that's specific, something that has an opinion that you might not even agree with, but something that resonates with you. And, sometimes you fly through a script and it takes 40, 45 minutes, and for me, that's a really fast read, and then sometimes it's a slog and you have to put it down after 30 pages, and then something happens on the 50th page, and, sometimes you don't believe in the story so much, but the character's dialogue is fantastic, and you wish the story held up better, or the story was worthy of the dialogue. Other times, the story is really beautiful, and it's something that's not original, but somehow the writer crafted it in a way that seems unique, but the dialogue sucks, and so you never know. But usually I find, for me, there's a time about 10 or 15 pages in or so where my lips almost start moving while I'm reading the part that's been either offered or that I'm being thought of for.
Yeah.
Like, I'll literally notice my lips start moving as I'm reading that character's dialogue. I might not be saying the words, and that means that I'm there's something that's pulling me into it.
Oh, that's great. Are your birthday's soon, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, May 31st.
What are you going to do?
I don't know, man. I don't know yet. 40. How old are you? A gentleman should never ask.
44.
44.
Yeah.
You're good for that.
No, look at this gray.
No.
Look at this gray just ripping through here.
No, you're doing good, man.
I don't know, man. I see it. I see in the mirror. I go, oh, yeah, there it is.
You're doing good.
When I get out of bed and I'm like, I'm sore for no reason. There it is. Here's the gray. But
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, did you freak out about it, or are you cool with it?
No, I'm cool
Oh,
with it.
see, that's great.
Yeah, I'm cool. Did you when you turned 40?
I freaked out
People
when
are telling me, people are asking me about it in a way that I feel like I should be freaking out.
No,
or
you shouldn't.
something.
That's us putting shit on you.
Yeah.
When I was 38, I freaked out. 40 didn't bother me.
38, when you turned 38?
When I turned 30, I was like,
why? What happened?
40, it's right there. It was like that.
I mean, I can get the wheelies by going, in 10 years I'm 50. That's a bit scarier than in 3 weeks I'm 40.
But honestly, it doesn't really bother me. I'll be
I'm fine with getting old.
45 in November, and it
We're all
doesn't
going to
even
be fucking dead in 50 years.
Yeah, of course.
We're lucky, so whatever.
It doesn't matter. Like there's
sad life, isn't it? It's so impermanent, man. It's so quick.
It is impermanent, but it's also permanent. It is permanent though in the
in
sense
how you live on, the memories you
That's
live on in
exactly
other people.
right.
Yeah,
That's
well,
exactly
that's
right.
kind of the equivalent of or an interpretation of heaven, I suppose, is how you live on in the memories of those who were ever touched by you or loved you.
Absolutely, and just that sort of emotional DNA that's passed down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that someday your son will look in the back and be like, "What are you doing? Hey, I'm having a moment."
Yeah.
There's something that's really charming and sweet about that.
Yeah.
Because it comes from a good
Then my
place.
son will say to his, "Listen to these lyrics." Listen to the words. Listen to the words.
You don't even know. You kids don't even know.
Well, I'm not even speaking yet. Fuck you.
But I think that is ultimately what it's about, and I think that's part of, being a part of a community and being connected to the world in a way that's because it's very easy to get completely myopic and self-focused, but I can't imagine. I'm never happiest when I'm super self-focused, and no one benefits from that. So it's learning how to let go of that.
No, absolutely, and it's like that line, and it's like that not that line, but that thing that the character in Into the Wild etches into the piece of wood at the end of his life, at the end of the film, at the end of his life. And I paraphrase, but it's something along the lines of, "You're not supposed to do it alone." I mean, he has broken free of the constraints of society to go and find himself into the wilderness of, was it Alaska?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And then he ends up, getting very sick, and that thing that he etched in was so sad that he finally found the truth that it's not about being alone, it is about being part of a community. And when I talk at all about, looking into the self or spending time with yourself, it's ultimately to better serve your own honesty and thereby better serve your community.
Sure.
And better serve your kids and better serve your parents or your friends or whatever the hell, Yeah, it's fascinating.
Do you meditate and focus? And
I wish. I've gone through little periods.
Yeah.
You?
No, I
Gone
feel
through
like
little periods. I can never seem to get more than 2 weeks, and then I literally forget. I get tired and I forget, and I was like, back to one. It's like AA, 20 years sober, and then you have one drink, and you're like, I've got 1 day sober. It's back to scratch. The meditation thing. It seems to be something that works.
That's funny. That's funny. That's funny that you say that because I'm 13 years sober, but I tried to go to AA at first, and then every time I went, I just got more depressed than when I got there, and so I kind of had to do it with a therapist and a close group of friends.
And you got your own sober system going. And
yeah.
Same here. I mean, I did AA is extraordinary. I mean, I think it's an amazing thing, and
I do too.
I really do. And
even though I couldn't do it.
Yeah, same here. No, I don't think it's for everyone.
No.
And I did 6 months, of it, and it was great. It was really great. And then, yeah, as you said, got my own system in place of, yeah. But that, meditation, I know that I should do more of it.
Well, I feel like I feel like there's a, what it is as I'm starting to get older and I see dudes who are maybe like 10 years older, and I see how stress has kind of affected their bodies, and I go, fuck, it's not going to get better if I don't figure out how to let stuff go. Or
how do you switch off, man? Where do you find relaxation?
It's really funny you asked that question because I had a day last week and normally I'm okay with it, but I had a day last week where I was just like this.
You jacked?
And I never miss drinking at all, ever.
His hands shook violently, by the way. For all you people listening and wondering.
This is shaking. But there was one day where I was like, oh, right, this is why people do stuff like that, to unwind their brains. And I came home. My fiance is amazing. She sensed that I was really tense. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just in a weird space. She kind of gave me space, and I just kind of zoned out for an hour and allowed myself to feel it. I think that was the key, was that I didn't fight it. I was like, I don't feel good. I'm going to let myself not feel good.
Did you just stare into space, or did you read? Or
I stared at a Nintendo 3DS, and I played a very insipid game that's repetitive. And
good, that wasn't too challenging.
Wasn't too challenging.
Fire off the synapse in your brain too aggressively.
Nope, and it just sort of, And I breathed but I think when you try to control it is when you get really fucked up.
Yeah,
because you're trying to control it too much. You got to let it go.
Big time. Life in general.
Yes.
Let it go.
I'm not saying I'm good at it, but I'm just saying.
No, me neither, man.
That's what I recognize.
No, these are all just theories and shooting the breeze and hopes, if anything, just yeah.
Yeah, but it is, I think, like I said earlier, because the world seems so uncontrollable and because so many people are doing whatever they can to get a foothold, I feel like it is probably one of the most anxious periods in human history because there's so much to process at all times. So, so you asked that question, how do you let it go? I think
the world is moving so fast, and intellect is so capable of discerning and breaking down, and algorithms exist everywhere, and yet I think the emotional lifespan of a human being moves at the same pace.
Right, but I think there's also
a disparity there.
I think there's also this idea that, we should never feel a bad emotion at any time, and I think it's important to let yourself feel like if your body's trying to process something, or you got to let it happen. And I think that's how I kind of unwind. It's just like, hey, if I'm sad, I'll cry. If I'm mad, I'll just be like, grrr.
That's cool, man. That's being kind to yourself. That's all right. Genuinely, that's if I could teach my kids one thing, it might be something in the ballpark of what you just said. Whatever you feel in life, whatever it is, whether it's anger, rage, hurt, upset, jealousy, greed, envy, joy, all of it, they're all just signals, and they're all okay. And don't judge any of them, and just allow them their passage through you, and mosey on your way.
Are you good at it? Are you good at how do you decompress?
We used to decompress a similar way.
Yeah.
I haven't got that anymore. I'm all right at it. I'm better than decompression now. Doesn't kind of, speed me toward a potentially swifter death than it once did. Decompressing now is like a hike up in the hills, or do a yoga class, or read a bit, or play a bit of the guitar, or have a coffee and a whatever and a stroll, or drive around town. Watch a movie. All simple stuff like that. Yeah. Simple stuff.
Well, it learning how to be okay with just this, I always refer to it as this like straight line, this straight emotional line, as opposed to this crazy parabolic. Oh, I'm up now I'm down. I'm up, I'm feeling, I'm alive. It's just
absolutely.
Like just being okay.
No, the
just
pendulum
existing.
doesn't swing as far and wide as it once did, but it still swings. There's still music in the old chain,
Yeah. I don't regret that I did it. I think it's good to have experienced it. I think it creates wisdom. And listen, whatever mistakes we make, ultimately, when we're older and wiser, we became that person because of the mistakes we made. So
sure.
It's okay.
Absolutely.
So we gotta let kids do this.
Can you and me have a hug now?
We gotta hug it out. This is such a hug. This is our hug moment. Hey guys, just open the window and just feel the vibe, and
exactly.
And don't let anyone tell you what are you doing. But this was also, you've provided our a largely American audience with a bee's dick away from, which is a great measurement of length from what you said earlier.
If you want to get micro,
which I feel like is something that people are going to start using now. Thanks to you.
That was why I came here today.
It's. I feel like your accent in particular makes everything okay. You could say anything and our ears would be like, whatever it is, I'm on board.
Do you think?
Absolutely.
Used to be a lot stronger. When
you go home, they're like, what happened?
No, when I go, if I actually, there's certain words that are used commonly at home that if I even say those words, I'll instantly go back to sounding more Irish. And if I go home a couple of days at home and my accent thickens right up.
It's just right back up again. Yeah. Well, you got to be a chameleon sometimes, and you got to, you absorb.
Yeah. No, I think I've held on to it. Yeah.
It sounds Irish to me. I don't know. How does an American accent sound to you?
Like an American accent. Which one, I mean, there's so many in Ireland. I mean, Ireland is a small island. What is it? It's maybe 180 or 230 miles east to west, and then a little bit longer, maybe 300 plus, 350 north to south. It's small. But there's a plethora of accents on that island alone. In America, I mean, the accents in this country are just so wide-ranging. From Louisiana to Texas to, the Midwest, and New York, Chicago. I couldn't tell you what a San Francisco accent is. An LA accent, I don't know either. But
LA accent is a bit like this. Like everyone speaks up at the end.
Yeah.
Everything sounds like a question because I'm afraid, and I don't know if what I'm saying is accurate. So I can't really be sure of anything. Like that's sort of what it is. It's almost not. It's almost more of an emotional affectation than it is like a specific. Because there aren't that many people who are actually from Los Angeles.
It's not entrenched in like the hard-boiled times of a particular socioeconomic demographic. It didn't come through the Dust Bowl.
Yeah. And San Francisco is somewhat similar, but it sounds more like this. L.A. is dumb, like they just hate L.A.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's everything of that. But L.A. is dumb. Yeah, so that's our weird rivalry. But I mean, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. We've been talking for an hour.
Have we really?
Yes.
I don't feel like that at all, man.
It flew by. Yeah, look at that. An hour and 2 minutes. The Lobster is fucking fantastic, and people should absolutely see it. But I would also say go into it with an open mind.
Yeah, open mind. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, it's probably not what you should say when you're trying to sell your movie. But
I think it's a fair...
Bonus is in the corner with their head in her hands going, oh, God.
It's a fair thing to say.
It's not everyone's cup of tea, and anyone that sees the trailer is going to know that. But it's a film that I strongly believe in, and I can seldom say that. Like, strongly believe, and I have my friends at home. Some of them loved it, and some of them kind of were scratching their heads going, when are you doing SWAT 2? That's all I mean. All I mean is, look... A film that cost $3 or $4 million to make is never going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Right.
Like a Marvel film is. And by the way, I love Marvel films. That's not a slag on Marvel. That's all I'm saying. Danica, my darling publicist, in the corner going, Jesus, shut him up. Turn the microphone off.
This just got one of the tranquilizer guns from the movie.
You should have cut it off in an hour.
Down goes Colin.
God damn. It was the 63rd minute that it all went past.
It's interesting to see. It's really nice, and I think it's comforting for people too. Because, people see you in movies like, oh, Colin Farrell, he's got everything, but just hearing how complex and human you are, I think is nice for people. It just makes people feel connected in a way.
Oh, I'm a very lucky fella. They're right. I have a lot, but yeah.
Were you raised Irish Catholic?
I was raised, yes, under that banner of guilt and remorse, and
I had a therapist once who was a comedian before she became a therapist, and she told me this really great joke that two Irish Catholics are watching the most beautiful sunset they've ever seen.
Oh, I love it already.
It was the most stunning, like the sun just painted the sky in this gorgeous.
I mean, that's a joke already.
Yeah,
you know the Irish climate, but go on.
Just painted the sky as this gorgeous palette of colors, and they sat there silent for a second. Then one turned to the other and said, "Oh, we're gonna pay for this one."
Oh yeah.
It's like you can never
empty man.
Yeah.
When's the other foot gonna land? Yeah, big time. There's a lot of that.
But that's not true.
Sometimes the sun shines for a long time. The whole saying, and it could have been coined in my country, which I love so dearly. I don't know, but make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of fear in that saying.
You mean it's like it's going to go down?
Yeah,
it's going to be over.
The sun shines. Get it in while you can.
Yeah.
And for such phrases can lead people to betray themselves sometimes and betray what they need in a moment.
Well, make hay when you can, and enjoy the haymaking process, or have fun.
Exactly.
But thank you so much for coming on, Colin Farrell. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Chris.
Enjoy your burrito, everyone.
Now leaving Nerdist.com. Enjoy your burrito.